Thank you. Well, I think most of you will agree that not much has really changed since I graduated from nursing school. Back then, my very first job was on a post-op surgical unit. We were so busy, though, you might not even believe it. They expected us to take care of 4 patients at the same time. Fortunately then, some of them were 3-day post-op tonsillectomies, 10-day post-op vaginal hysterectomies. But in spite of that heavy load, we gave excellent care, which of course meant giving the patient a nice, long, complete bed bath, soaking their feet in a basin of water, giving them a 10-minute relaxing back rub. You know, that everyday kind of care we give. Sometimes on the evening shift, I got to be the charge nurse. But usually the charge nurse was an older nurse. I mean, she had to be 50. Now, she lovingly called me Brat. I lovingly called her Poston. I made it up. P-O-S-T-E-N. It stood for Poor Old Sick and Tired Elderly Nurse. Now, Poston used to go on and on to us brats about how they used to do things in the old days. So here it is, 2019, and I have young friends who are nurses. They're young. They must be like 30. And sometimes I'm just trying to explain to them so they can appreciate how we used to do things. And that's when I realize I'm that old nurse now. I'm Poston. And sometimes it feels like everything has changed. No longer do we have time to give complete bed baths. We barely have time to give baths at all. Nurses sometimes go home at the end of their shifts with achy feet and achy hearts, feeling like I did my best, but it still felt like it wasn't enough. The acuity of the care is just so much harder today. Hospitals are becoming intensive care units. Nursing homes are becoming hospitals. Homes are becoming nursing homes. No wonder it is so stressful for all of us in healthcare. Sometimes not only is it stress, we get in distress. Are you ever in distress? How would I know, you ask? I've been this way so long. That's why I made a list. If you have your book, you can turn to page 19. A list of symptoms. If not, just listen and mentally circle any of these symptoms that might apply to you. Physical symptoms of too much stress might include appetite changes, headaches, fatigue, poor sleeping, frequent illnesses, digestive problems, a pounding heart, grinding teeth, rash, restlessness, foot tapping, finger drumming, smoking, increased alcohol intake. And there are mental symptoms of too much stress, forgetfulness. Hope that's not a big one or I am in trouble. Forgetful. Oh, sorry. Poor concentration, dulled senses, lethargy, boredom, low productivity, a negative attitude, anxiety, the blues, mood swings, anger, bad dreams, irritability, crying spells, nervous laughter, a loss of a loving feeling in our lives. And friends, there are spiritual symptoms from too much stress. Feelings of emptiness, loss of meaning, doubt, martyrdom, loss of direction, cynicism, apathy, abandonment, worry, isolation, distrust, a feeling like nobody cares. So if we have these symptoms, what do we do about it? Well, that's where self-care for healthcare comes in. I believe in order to cope with all the stressors we have in our personal and professional lives, we've got to be strong physically, mentally, and spiritually. And to be strong in these 3 ways, we have to nurture ourselves in these 3 ways every single day. We can't just wait for weekends to catch up, to sleep in late, eat a big breakfast, and go to church. We need to take time every day, even in 15-minute increments, to nurture our bodies, our minds, and our spirits. But as I travel to nurses and health caregivers all over this continent, I'm more convinced than ever that you're so busy taking care of other people, you sometimes take lousy care of yourselves, treating yourselves in ways that you would never treat somebody you cared for. Can you imagine saying to a patient or somebody that you love, "You can't have anything to eat today. No, sir, I'm too busy to feed you." I would never say that to somebody else. How often do you deny yourself food and drink? We would never do that to somebody else. We know we're supposed to eat according to the pyramids and portions on our plate. We know we're supposed to drink 6 glasses of water a day. How simple could that be? But how often do we nurture our bodies with the quantity and quality of food and drink we know it needs? We forget to sleep. Do you ever hear yourself say, "Oh, I get by on that many hours. I survive on that much sleep"? How did we ever get to a place where surviving would be good enough for us? I read a survey that said 80% of Americans said they would get the required 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. And have you read the research? It's been in our journals. The scientists have proven the human body requires 7 to 8 hours of sleep in a 24-hour period. If we're not giving it that, we are actually depleting our immune systems, increasing our blood pressure, increasing depression, decreasing our lifespan, increasing our fatty deposits. That's when some women say, fatty deposits, seriously? I mean, shortening lifespan was one thing, but fatty deposits? I'm going to bed. But 80% of Americans said they would get the required 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night if they didn't have television or the internet. And I'm saying, who's the boss of them? How are you going to turn off technology, turn off electricity to get your body the sleep it needs? And exercise. Now, maybe you're one of those people that was up and at the gym before you came in this morning. Or maybe you're somebody a little bit more like me who has a really hard time committing to setting aside time every single day for exercise. So that's why we appreciate, don't we, the research proving that 45 minutes of brisk walking has the same cardio benefit as jogging. So surely we can walk, right? And now we're running out of excuses because they found it's cumulative. You can do 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, 15, and it all adds up. Surely we can find 15-minute increments to get our body some exercise. And as busy as we are, to me it makes sense to try to incorporate exercise into our everyday lives. When I worked nights, how many of you worked last night? God bless you, and you stuck around. I remember everything in me just wanted to drive home, and you stayed, thank you. When I worked nights, I used to jog up and down the stairwell at 2 o'clock in the morning. It was the only time I could find to get some exercise in, and it woke me up. I think Grandma must be, kind of laughing down from heaven, because for all generations before us, we got our exercise from everyday activities. Now in America, a lot of us pay people to do other things, those things for us. We pay people to mow our lawns and rake our leaves and wash our cars and shovel our snow and shovel our snow and shovel our snow. So we have time to go to a health club and work out. And then we get to the health club and drive round and round looking for a parking place closer to the door so we don't have to walk so far to get our exercise. How are you going to pay attention, even in 15-minute increments, to get your body the nutrition and fluids, the sleep, and the exercise you know it needs, and it really does deserve? Now, the second part of our lives we have to balance is our mental selves. And in this busy, stressful, chaotic world, it's so important that we take time every day for mental rest. And one of the very best ways to do it, really is the very best, it's just that it's so simple, we often discount it. And that's taking time every day to stop several times a day and breathe. You know that breathing they taught us in childbirth, or they teach in yoga, where you breathe slow and deep from your abdomen? In 2, 3, 4, out 2, 3, 4. In 2, 3, 4. Slow, deep breathing that way releases a lot of stress, a lot of tension, a lot of endorphins in our brain. I read in a nursing journal once that endorphins have the same molecular makeup as morphine. And we have this on tap. And forget to utilize it by doing rhythmic things. Walking, laughing, breathing. It's also a great coping skill. One I learned the hard way. As Dawn mentioned in my introduction, it was true. I got caught up in bringing babies out of Vietnam at the end of the war. Now, it's reasonable for a person to say, how did a young 25-year-old nurse and mom get caught up in that? And I still have no idea. But I think it started when I was a little girl. I remember trick-or-treating for UNICEF and learning that 2.5 cents could buy a carton of milk and save a child's life. And I was still just a little girl when I made an important decision. I was going to adopt a child someday. And so certain was I that on the very day that Mark and I took that romantic walk and he asked me to marry him and I said yes, at my engagement moment I told him, I want to adopt a child someday. So these things must have been on my mind that day when I was pushing our 2 little girls in the stroller at the mall. And I came across a bake sale for Friends of Children of Vietnam, a national organization that was raising money for the war orphans. Well, I wanted to help. I wanted to make a difference. So I stopped to buy a dozen cupcakes. Understand that is all I ever intended to do for the orphans of the world, was buy a dozen cupcakes. But then I saw a flyer and I thought, well, I should check out the organization. And so I went to a meeting and I joined up. And within a month, the president moved away and I became the president. And then my basement was the chapter headquarters of Friends of Children of Vietnam. And really, there were about 6 or 8 of us. Many of us worked together like you. We put drop boxes on grocery stores and had bake sales and went to doctor's offices and clinics. And we collected 5 tons of supplies to send to Vietnam in 3 years. So that's maybe why the national office in Denver called and asked if I'd be the next escort to go to Vietnam and bring 6 babies back to their adoptive homes. Well, between the day I said, yes, I will go, and the day before I left, the bombing went from 100 miles outside of Saigon to right outside the city limits. So how I got on the plane that day, you'll learn, is an amazing story in itself, and you'll learn about that this year. But suffice it to say, I prayed hard, and I just knew God was sending me, and I'd be back, and I'd be safe. And indeed I was. I got to Vietnam. The very first words I heard from the director there was, have you heard the news? Last night, President Gerald Ford okayed Operation Baby Lift. You won't help us take out 6 babies. You'll help us take out 300. That's what I said. Oh, my gosh. 300. Now, I was a nurse. I was working peds. Nothing had prepared me for this. The 2-story center normally just housed a few babies. But now bombs are dropping. We can hear them. Our building trembled a few times. So they're gathering babies in from all of our foster homes, from all of the other orphanages, and I go into the downstairs where every inch of floor is covered with a mat. And then every inch of mat is covered with a baby. And then I went upstairs where I found seas and seas of babbling, burping, bawling babies. This is the first picture taken of me. I was holding a little girl with a shaved head. No doubt she'd had a scalp IV. And I said to my friend Carol, who was with me, take this, my very first picture here in Vietnam. And then, friends, on the 3rd day, I got an amazing assignment. The director said, Leanne, we know that you and Mark applied for adoption of a son through this organization. We know you expect him in about 2 or 3 years. That's normal. Well, because of Operation Baby Lift, we're going to assign you one of these babies, or else you could go into the next room and choose a son. And I went into that room of 100 babies. And across the room, there was a little 9-month-old boy standing next to a crib. Pinching the toes of the baby inside should have been a hint. But that little fella took one look at me, and he got down on his hands and knees, and he crawled right across the room into my arms, my heart, our family. We had a son. This is Mitch on my right knee. Now, it's my absolute conviction God created this child to be our son. No clue why he was conceived in somebody else's womb, because I know with all my heart, God made him only for us. And if anybody's adopted a child, they'll tell you that's a common feeling. And I had no doubt about it. But if I would have had a doubt about that divine assignment thing, it would have been erased. Because the week I got back from Vietnam, Carol came racing to my house one day waving a photograph. Leanne, do you remember that very first picture you had me take? Oh, I said, I'll never forget. I was holding that little girl with a shaved head. She said, I have that picture here. And there's only one other person in the background. Mitch, 3 days before he picked me, just waiting for his mama. So now I had a son. But getting all the babies to the airport's not so easy. Did you even know you can fit 22 in a Volkswagen van? You simply take the center seat out, and 22 fit quite snugly, except for that little one dangling from the bench. And then we went to the airport where there's a C-141 cargo jet, huge empty airplane, but not today. Today they had 22 cardboard boxes side by side. Who knew? You can fit 2 to 3 babies in a cardboard box. Then, believing in seatbelt safety, we took a strap from one end of the plane over the 22 boxes and secured it on the other. There were 9 of us to take care of 100 babies. Imagine your worst shift ever. I'll never forget sitting there cross-legged on the floor. I had a baby here, a baby here, a baby here, propping a bottle, propping a bottle, propping a bottle, watching my son. And friends, that's when I started that slow, deep, easy breathing. I honestly did then, just to cope. You see, the same breathing I had used to bring our daughters into our family, now I was using to bring our son. And when people see this, and they see photos of my kids then, and see that my kids all grew up, and to see that my kids have kids, and that my baby girl adopted a baby girl and a baby boy from Mississippi. And when people see that on the 25th anniversary of Operation Baby Lift, I got to go to a reunion and stand before 100 young men and women, many I helped to bring out. And it was on that same 25th anniversary year that President Gerald Ford heard I was going to be in the same town he was going to be in, and he asked if he could meet me. He asked if he could have his picture taken with me. I said, I don't know, I'm kind of busy. And when people see all of this, they say, wow, Leanne, that was some adventure. And that's the truth. Wow, Leanne, you were so brave. That's not the truth. I was no hero. I was no hero. I was just this ordinary. Things happened to me there that brought me to my knees. I was no hero. I was just this ordinary nurse caught up in something so over my head. I was grappling for anything I could to help me cope, and breathing was a big part of that. Now, it's unlikely that you're ever going to be asked to rescue babies in cardboard boxes in a third world country in the middle of a war. But God knows you rescue people every day with what you do. Don't forget to use your breathing as your first mental balance tool. And the second mental balance tool I really believe in is the power of positive thinking. I read that book by Dr. Norman Vincent Peale when I was just in my 20s. I knew he was right. We get what we expect in life. We get what we repeat over and over to ourselves. We get what we visualize. We become our most dominant thought. That's a little scary. Then a surgeon took it to another level. Bernie Siegel wrote a book with his research called Love, Medicine, and Miracles. Because as a surgeon, he was realizing that people with positive thinking and visualization were getting better and other people weren't. Quit his day job to prove it. One of his first case studies in the 80s, a 30-year-old woman diagnosed with inoperable abdominal cancer given 6 months to live. Well, she wouldn't accept it. She said every day she was going to visualize that her cancer cells were carrots and her white blood cells were rabbits. And for an hour every day she visualized rabbits eating carrots in her system. And in 3 months, her tumor was gone. He documented that as a scientific study. It took me too long to believe this scientifically proven fact. Our bodies and minds don't distinguish the difference between experience and visualization. They react as if they both happened. Bernie tells a group of men in the chemotherapy study, half of them got the chemo, and the other half of the 500 got a placebo. Of course, they didn't know which group they were in, but they were told if you're getting the chemo, you'll likely lose your hair. Of the men who got the placebo, 20% of them lost their hair. Why? Why? They thought they would. That's what they expected. That's why they use this in sports medicine. Our bodies and minds don't distinguish the difference. Half of the basketball team shot free throws every day for the hour. The other half of the basketball team visualized doing so perfectly. And at the competition, the results are the same. Your mind is a computer. You control the input. How can positive thinking change your health, your happiness, and indeed your workplace? Now, there's a third mental balance tool we too often forget to utilize. This good nurse didn't forget. She was from North Dakota and transferred to Texas. She said it was kind of a culture shock. No longer did she hear people say, "How are you doing?" She heard them say, "Como estás?" It was a largely Hispanic population there. She loved her job in post-op recovery. One day, the OR nurse wheeled a man into her cubicle and gave her a report. This is Mr. Martinez. He's a 60-year-old Hispanic male, had abdominal surgery, general anesthesia. He's doing fine, vital signs he's stable, but the man will not respond. Well, the good nurse, of course, did her own assessment. Certainly, vital signs absolutely stable, everything normal. Mr. Martinez, Mr. Martinez, Mr. Martinez, Mr. Martinez. He wouldn't respond. She waited 15 minutes, repeated the assessment. Mr. Martinez, Mr. Martinez, Mr. Martinez. Finally, her coworker said, "You're driving us nuts. Why don't you try waking him in his native language?" And they told her what to say. So she repeated it over and over in her mind till she got to the bedside. She reached across the rail, put her hands on the man's shoulders, her face just 10 inches from his, and shouted, "Bésame, Mr. Martinez, bésame!" Well, don't know what surprised her the most. Mr. Martinez sitting straight up and quite alert, or the hysterical laughter of her coworkers. She said, oh no, what did you have me say to him? And they gave her the translation. It was, kiss me, Mr. Martinez, kiss me. Laughter, that's our third mental balance tool. And I think as health caregivers, we forget to laugh. Certainly, we would never laugh at anyone. But wouldn't you agree we have to laugh at ourselves and laugh at situations? Laughter really is the best medicine. There's an organization of therapeutic humor for doctors and nurses to study and publish on the benefits of laughter in your health. We know that laughter really does increase the production of cancer-killing cells. It boosts your immune system. It lowers your blood pressure. Lots of physical benefits and mental benefits, releasing all those endorphins. Kids must know this. Kids laugh 400 times a day. Do you know how many times grown-ups laugh? One study said 19, another said 11. Somebody told me 4. And you know people who can't meet that quota, don't you? So we spend a whole month on each of these. Life balancing, we spend a whole month on laughter. And every chapter has how to do this. And so I have a whole list of how to create laughter in the workplace. And I put my girlfriend's idea. She had a really good idea. She happened to be a nurse, and she went to work one day with a piece of tape here. And another day the tape was down here, and another day the tape was here, and then it was here. Finally, a coworker said, what is with that tape on your arm every day? Oh, she said, I put that there to show where I've had it up to. That's funny. It makes me laugh. What makes you laugh? Are there comedians or books or comics that are TV shows or movies that just make you laugh and laugh and laugh until, as my girlfriend said, till tears run down your pant leg? And are there people that make you laugh? I bet you can picture them. Those people that just bring that joyful, bubbling laughter into your life. And are there other people that just seem to suck that joy right out of you? Well, unless you're married to them, try not to spend so much time with them. Instead, try to surround yourself with the positive people so that you can bring laughter into your life and you can laugh 400 times a day like kids, because laughter is your third mental balance tool. And there's a fourth and final. Besides the slow, deep, easy breathing, besides positive thinking and visualization, besides laughter, the fourth is forgiveness. Because we waste a lot of our life, and did you know we waste our health if we fail to forgive? So we spend a month on forgiveness. Learning, first of all, to forgive ourselves for any past mistakes or regretted decisions. We learn to forgive ourselves. Because, friends, that's who we were then based on what we knew then. It's not who we have chosen to be today. And besides forgiving ourselves, we were going to work really hard at forgiving somebody else, no matter how horrific the offense. And I know that some of them are really horrific. But what took me too long to realize is, if you don't forgive somebody, it doesn't hurt them. It only hurts us. So why would we allow someone who caused us so much pain? Why would we give them the power to continue to hurt us by giving us sleepless nights and upset stomachs and headaches and high blood pressure? We have to forgive them whether we think they deserve it or not. We do. You know, I know people who are mad at people who don't even know they're mad at them. I know people who are mad at dead people. I know people who are mad at past administrations who have been long gone and they're still mad. Forgiveness is freeing. We have to forgive. Bernie Siegel shared this story in Nurse's Soul of a young worker who worked at this care center. It seemed his job every day was to lift Miss Sally from the bed to the chair because Miss Sally hadn't walked in 6 years. One day as he lifted her, she said, "You know, you look like a man of faith. Does God really forgive everything?" "Yes, ma'am, he does." Later he lifted her again. She said, "Can you promise me God always forgives everything?" "Yes, ma'am, I promise." "You sure?" "Yes, ma'am, I'm sure." Well, he went on home, and the next evening came into work, was immediately called into his supervisor's office, who said, "What did you tell Miss Sally last night?" She simply asked if God forgave. I assured her he always does. Why? "Because at 3 o'clock this morning, Miss Sally came walking down the hall." put her teeth and her Bible on the nurse's desk, said, "Won't be needing these anymore," walked back to her room, laid down, and died. And almost every time I tell that story, somebody in my audience tells me one just like it. And I can't tell you how many heads I've seen nodding here in the last 2 days. My friends, forgiveness is freeing. So, starting now, beside yourself, who are you going to forgive? Now, there's that third part of our lives we have to keep in balance, and that's our spiritual selves. Now, statistics show that about 95% of Americans believe in God. So, I always assume that my audiences reflect that same ratio. And so it's to that 95% of you to whom I say, you need to be in touch with a higher power, the supreme being, the God you believe in, every single day. You can't just wait for weekends for that either. Even if it's as little as 15 minutes for quiet prayer, meditation, reflection. But I can hear what you're thinking right now. Yeah, right, Leanne, where am I supposed to come up with 15 minutes? Especially now. You tell me I have to stop and breathe now several times a day, and I've got to start taking these short 15-minute walks throughout the day, and now I've got to go to bed earlier, so how am I supposed to come up with another 15 minutes? Well, that was hard for me, too. But I knew it was lacking in my life, and I thought maybe the best way to claim it would be to get a little daily reading book, and as you need a suggestion, I think that is a good way to start. As a matter of fact, I visited your chapel. There's a wonderful little daily reading book in there for free. Go pick them up, because that's the one I take on the road with me all the time. So I had this little daily reading book, but being the productive nurse personality that I am, I couldn't sit down and read it. Way too busy for that, but I could read it every day while I dried my hair. So I opened it up on the bathroom counter, and every day with my hair dryer going and my brush, and I read it out loud. And a couple weeks into this, it occurred to me, you know what, Leanne, I think you're supposed to sit down, shut up, and listen. Just listen to that deep inner voice. Now you can call it higher conscience, you can call it gut feeling, you can call it Holy Spirit, whatever you believe in, but what I know is that deep inner voice is the divine guidance in our life, and we cannot hear it in the chaos. And friends, I think we can't do what we do without that spiritual balance. How can we bring holistic care of mind, body, and spirit to those we touch from an empty well? Recently, I read statistics that 80% of Americans believe spiritual is a key part of their healing. So if we're not bringing them that, are we not denying them a part of their healing? One nurse shared such a tough story in the second edition of Nurse's Soul, but such an important one, I think. The short version of the story is that she found herself, had come upon an accident, giving resuscitation to an infant wrapped in a gray blanket in the back seat of a car. And she said as she puffed air into those little lungs and did those gentle compressions over and over and over and over, finally she cried out, "God, please, please, God, help." The air ambulance came and whisked the baby and the family away. And she wrote that she went home and stood in her backyard where it was snowing really hard and the snow was getting deep, but she said, "I didn't care. I just had to stand there to cry and to pray." She saw a little kitten go scurrying by. She said, "Oh, wait here, you must be hungry." She came back with an open can of tuna fish, but the cat was gone, so she tried to follow it, but there were no tracks. And she thought, how can a cat be walking in all this fresh snow and have no paw prints? And then she realized the cat was exactly the color of the blanket the baby'd been in. And she said, I knew then the baby was in the arms of God. And I think he sent the kitten to say, "You did everything you could. I got this." Well, she went inside and she called her coworker at the pediatric intensive care unit and unfortunately confirmed her fears. She said, "The baby is brain dead. They're donating all the organs. Your effort to save this child will now save the lives of more." She wrote, I learned a new lesson that day. As nurses and caregivers and radiologists and cardiac workers and pharmacologists and respiratory therapists and all caregivers, we have training. We have initials behind our names. But we have to remember that we lack 3. G-O-D. We do our part, but the outcome is always and only up to the Creator. I encourage you, find your 10, just 10, not 15, 10 minutes a day to connect and be still. But it's hard, isn't it? Keeping that physical, mental, spiritual. I still struggle with it. When I'm on the road too much, I'm not exercising enough. So I exercise more, but then I'm not eating quite right. That's when I need to take a step back and take a look at my life, and that's what we're asking you to do. To take a step back and take a look at your life. Review those symptoms. The physical, mental, or spiritual may be a little out of balance. And if you discover that one is out of balance, you need to ask for what you need to put it back into balance again. Ask lovingly, not blamefully. Give it thought, maybe in your quiet time. What do you need to better take care of your body, your mind, and your spirit? And then ask, first of all, of yourself. Give yourself permission to care for you, making that a priority. Maybe you need to ask of a family member, your church group, your coworkers, your supervisor, what do you need? And then we should be more like a toddler. Anybody here have a toddler? Have you noticed that when a toddler figures out what they need, they ask for it until they get it? I want some juice, Mama. I want juice. 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 Till somebody gets a kid juice. Am I right? Now, as grown-ups, especially in healthcare, we tend not to do that. First of all, it takes us way too long to figure out it's juice we need or want. And if we do figure it out, we don't always ask for it. Instead, we tend to do something a bit more like, I didn't get any juice today. I hardly ever get juice anymore. Nobody at this whole place seems to care if I get my juice or I don't. I just need a little. We need to ask for our juice so we can put our lives into better balance. And then we could bring that balance to the workplace. But would you agree we don't always do that? Not only do we not bring a balance, we sometimes bring an imbalance and brag about it. Do you know I've worked here 20 years, I never have taken a break. You hear that, right? Right? Another good one is, I worked right through lunch again today. I worked through dinner. But here's a favorite of all time for nurses. I didn't even stop to go to the bathroom. Like we're proud of this. And so what are we teaching the new people? That we don't even care for ourselves well enough to empty our bladders promptly. And by the way, how do we orient new people? When somebody new comes on board, do we share with them the privilege of what we do? The honor, the passion, the compassion? Or too often do we share that stinking thinking? Things that are so tough in healthcare today, that always go wrong, that have been so hard. We need to build each other up, help each other out. We need to be far less concerned about who's been here the longest, who did what on what shift, who has what initials behind their name, who did what in what department, and all do what we are called to do and give that loving, compassionate, patient care together as a team. I hope you see the connection between self-care for healthcare and your beautiful mission statement. I love your mission statement. The first line always chokes me up. We continue the healing ministry of Jesus Christ. What a privilege. But then the next part, promoting personal and community health. Your mission statement is committing to taking care of your personal health by relieving pain and suffering and treating with loving and care in every way. That's a beautiful statement. But I think we can't do all that if we're depleted, if we're exhausted of mind, body, and spirit. So that's what self-care for healthcare is all about. And that's why I'm so excited to be here and to tell you all about it. So here's how the program works. First of all, I come in live and give this presentation 4 times yesterday, 3 times today. We're having it videotaped. So that anybody that misses this, we're going to ask your departments to show it to the whole department so everybody gets to see this launch, because this is a big deal. Because you know why it's such a big deal? You are the first hospital in the state of Oregon to launch self-care for healthcare. You should be very proud of that, because let me tell you, it's catching on. This is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And you will always be the first hospital in your state. And here's the other first. No hospital has set a 2-year agreement from the start. That's how committed your leadership is to this. So I'm giving these presentations now, and so that's the first part of it. And then it works like this. Whoopsie. Everybody gets the Self-Care for Healthcare book, and there's 12 chapters in the book. 1 chapter for every month. So currently, the first book, the first edition, and we've already got 3 years of this all outlined. The first edition, every chapter begins with a little bit of my Operation Baby Lift story. And so when I stopped to learn a lesson in Vietnam, I stopped to teach it. So let's just say, for example, that I might have really stuffed $10,000 cash in my bra to smuggle into Vietnam. I look like Dolly Parton. That chapter's on laughter. I said laughter. You guys have 399 times to laugh yet today. So I stop and I teach it then. I teach the lesson, and then there's always how-to in green. There's always science in the sidebars. And then the important thing is at the end of every chapter are questions you write out in longhand. How this applies to me and my life. When I created this program, I worked with experts on how adults learn. And they said 2 things need to happen. Actually, several things need to happen. They need to see you live. They need to read a book, write in longhand, speak out loud. That's why the last question says, discuss this with your accountability partner. And then they said, and they need a dose of you every month. So that's why you get a video of me, 7 minutes of a video of me every month. Whoops. So the videos, the SelfCare for Healthcare book, write the answer to the question. Then every Monday morning in your email box, you get a Monday morning motivation from me. Just a paragraph on that month's topic to keep you going and inspire you to keep this up. And here's the other best thing. Just a few months ago, we listened, and what we were hearing is, we want this on an app. So this first month is a prologue month in your book, and it's our Getting Organized month. And now we're going to be sending you an email of how you can download the app. So this will literally be at your fingertips. The book, I read it to you in a podcast if you want to listen instead. How many drive at least 20 minutes to work? Well, now you have something you can do. You can listen to the podcast. You can even listen to the video. And so the app will be giving instructions to you about how you can download the app. Currently, it's going to be your work email, but then you can change it to your home email or whatever you want so you can have it access. Because I know you're not going to have time to do this at work often, but hopefully I just want you to take 10 minutes or 15 minutes a day to participate in the program. Because the truth is, you have a new leadership here that really, honestly cares about you. You have no idea what Heather Wall did and Mary Kingston to get me here for you this month. Even with the snowstorm last week, I said, do you want to postpone it? They said, not a day. They truly love and care for you, and I am living proof. And they are committed to this program. This is a culture shift for your hospital, and we're going to prove to you how much they care about you, your mind, your body, and your spirit, because they literally brought you chicken soup for your soul. Because they know, they believe as I do, that working in healthcare is really a calling. It called me 40 years ago and posted 40 years before that. That calling to minister to people in their toughest times. That's why we don't quit and work anywhere else for try and find more money. There's not enough money in the world to pay us for what we do. What an honor. What a privilege we have to literally touch and save lives. And yet I know there are those days. I still remember them. When you feel like, yes, but they work so hard and I can't always get it all right and I can't take all the pain away and I can't get everything done and I can't make everybody happy. And some days I can't make anybody happy. And on those days you wonder, is my small, ordinary part really worth this? And I'm here to tell you, yes, it is. Because everything you do matters in ways you'll probably never even know about. No effort is too small. There was a sign above a burn unit in Vietnam that made that point. An American plastic surgeon set up a clinic to help the kids burned by the war. And above the doorway he wrote, "It's better to light a single candle than to curse the darkness." And that's what you do every day. You light your candles. And when you do so, you inspire other people in your home and your work and in your community. You inspire them to light their candles. And they go on and inspire to light theirs. And you set not only Sacred Heart or Oregon, you set the world aglow with your goodness and caring. I think Mother Teresa said it best. She said, I can't do great things. I can only do small things with great love. Like you. This nurse worked nights. Pediatric cancer floor. One night she found a little 7-year-old girl sound asleep, bald as a peach. Her little hand was sticking through the rail as she slept. And the good nurse went there in the darkness of the night and just instinctively, like good nurses do, took the little girl's hand, whispered a prayer for her, bent over and kissed her bald little head. And then she went to tiptoe away when she heard, "Miss Allison, Miss Allison." So she went back and took the little girl's hand again. And the child said, Miss Allison, when I grow up, I want to be what you are. Oh, she said, I know you're going to grow up, honey. You're going to make a marvelous nurse someday. No, I don't want to be a nurse. Don't want to work in a hospital. It's an angel I want to be. There's no denying it. Nurses and health caregivers, you are angels of mercy. That's why I dedicated Chicken Soup for the Nurse's Soul to you and Chicken Soup for the Caregiver's Soul to you. And the dedication in both books read, to all nurses and caregivers who perhaps more than any other group on earth truly ease the suffering of the world. So for every hand you've held, every candle you've lit, every life you touch, I thank you, thank you, thank you, because sometimes I know you feel like your part is small and ordinary, but you are making an extraordinary difference in this world, because you, my friends, you are the heroes. And I applaud you. Thank you. Okay, I saved time for questions, and nobody gets to leave until somebody asks me one. What questions do you have about self-care for healthcare, or for me in general? Gee, Leanne, how am I supposed to have time for this? Great question. I'm so glad somebody posed it, because that's the question I get the most. How in the heck am I supposed to have time for this? And here's my answer. 15 minutes a day. 15 minutes a day. 15 minutes to read a few pages from your book. It's 3 pages per chapter. Give me a break. 15 minutes to answer a question in the back. 15 minutes to maybe answer another one. 15 minutes to speak to your accountability partner. 15 minutes to watch the 7-minute monthly video. 15 minutes to read your Monday morning motivation, which takes 2. 15 minutes to be engaged in your champion activity. 15 minutes a day. And if you tell me you don't have 15 minutes a day, I'm telling you, it's time to find it. Enough already. You schedule everything for everybody else. And you just give and give and give of yourself. And you have a leadership now that is absolutely committed to caring for you. And so you have to find your 15 minutes a day. And occasionally I hear people say, yes, Leanne, but I don't even have 15 minutes a day. Well, that's why I set my alarm 15 minutes earlier. For goodness sakes, when I was starting all this. I mean, you thought I was setting it for 3 a.m., I moaned and I groaned. But I soon learned that time is an investment in my own health and happiness. And if you still say you don't have 15 minutes a day, then I pose this question to everybody. Are you on social media at all? And could you maybe watch one less cat video and schedule 15 minutes of your social media time to make it me time? The questions at the end say, your turn, your time for self-care. People tell me all the time, I really want to take better care of myself, Leanne. I don't even know where to begin. And with all humility, I say, this is it. And now I sound like my mother. If you just do what I tell you, you're going to be fine. She wasn't even Italian, so I don't know why I say it that way. But really, if you do this program, you read the book, you take your 10 or 15 minutes a day, you watch the videos, you read the Monday morning motivation, your life will change. Your workplace will change. Yes?
I took to praying every time before I come into work.
Hold on just a second. Would you mind?
Sure. I took to praying before coming into work, and I just noticed just that one small thing. There's such a huge difference in my day just doing that. And it only takes just a few minutes. And if I forget before I leave home, I do it while I'm walking into work. And my whole day has changed. If I forget to do it, and I've noticed a difference in my day. And
Thank you.
It's just a small thing.
Thank you, Brenda. That's not a small thing. It's a small thing, but it makes such a big difference.
It's huge in the day that you'll have.
It took me a while to learn that time is an investment. When I don't start my day that way, sometimes it's just 3 minutes. It wasn't my hotel room this morning because I slept in just a bit. But I still got my book out and I read my 3 minutes because I found that the days that I don't do that way, I'm not as happy, I'm not as focused, I'm not as productive. So thank you for that. What other questions do you have? You still haven't asked one, so nobody can leave. Well, she did make a comment, but we still haven't had a question. Yes?
I kind of thumbed through your book again tonight,
That's a very good question, thank you. This person said, I've thumb through the book, I see that there's even a checklist in the beginning for your accountability partner. What if you're kind of the person that doesn't like to share your inner thoughts? You don't have to. I would still like you to get an accountability partner, and you're going to find that the question that you talk about, you can pick whatever you want to talk about. You can say whatever you want. But have you noticed, I was going to walk every day, but until my neighbor made sure I walked with her every day, I mean, it was I was too tired, or it was too cold, or it might rain, or, but when you get a partner with somebody, usually you stay on track a little bit better. So you never have to share anything you don't want to share. But if you can just say, let's agree that we're going to check in with each other once a month and check off. Did you watch the video? Did you read the Monday Morning Motivation? Have you read the book? Or did you get it on the app just to check off, to hold each other kind of accountable and walk the journey with you? There are going to be people that say, honestly, I'm so happy, 99.3% of people love this program because it's easy and it's simple. It's simple, but not always easy. The discipline's not always easy. There's that 0.7% that just hate motivational speakers. I'm married to one. And a wonderful guy who says, don't tell me what to do. Just don't tell me what to do. But he still listens to all this stuff. So there will be people that say, this isn't for me. Fine. It's for a lot of people. And here's an important thing. It takes 16 to 25% engagement in a program before you start to see a culture shift. Just 16 to 25%. So that 16 to 25% starts engaging in the program. Your managers, I've talked at length with them, and we're talking some more. Your managers are doing this program, and I'm going to see to it. Your chief nursing officer is doing this program. And so there'll still be some people who say, but this program is not really for me. But when you get to 16 to 25% engagement, that's when you start to see the culture shift. And I'm kind of hearing from people that maybe we could use a whole lot more joy in the workplace. As a matter of fact, Institute of Health Improvement, IHI, has this whole framework for joy in the workplace. And I'm currently writing a white paper about how self-care for healthcare is that. It brings you joy in the workplace, because you can't be happy if you're depleted, right? If you're just exhausted, mind, body, and spirit. And then we're not as patient with each other. And yeah, I love your last, even your vision. Every Peace Health patient will receive safe, evidence-based, compassionate care every time, every touch. But I remembered, even with my own kids, having 3 kids under the age of 4 at the same time, and 3 teenagers, by the way, when I was exhausted and depleted of mind, body, and spirit, it was hard for me to do that every time and every touch. So wouldn't you agree, when you take better care of yourselves, then you're going to be taking care of others? I told you some of those great stats that we've had, increased engagement, increased retention, and so forth. But here's a really important thing you have to hear. This is not another initiative. God knows, hospitals have already so many initiatives. I don't need one more thing to do. This is a gift to you. So I hope you will embrace it like you do any gift, and give it a try. Try it on, and I think you're going to find it fits, and it's going to bless you in many ways. May I just end by saying thank you very much for all you do. God bless you, Jeff.